So I've been thinking on this channel, you know, I've done some cool models, I've done some big models, I've done some little models, I've done some prints, I've done some board game stuff. And ever since the collection video came out and that kind of took off and really blew up, and I gained a lot of my subscribers due to it, and it hit over 500,000 views, which is kind of crazy to think because most of my videos sort of get between 1 and a couple thousand views, and that one really took off for whatever reason that it did, and that's kind of frightening to think because a lot of people have seen the worst ever paint jobs that I've ever done, and that's kind of stressful to think about, but that's kind of what the channel's all about, I guess, you know. I'm not perfect at what I do, and, you know, I just want you guys to sort of see that it's fine to make mistakes and learn from them. But anyway, ever since that video dropped, I've been kind of thinking, like, what can I do to sort of keep momentum? You know, what will people like to see? And I've been racking my brain thinking about it, and today, you know, I put on my thinking shirt. It's got to be current, so probably Elden Ring. I think it's got to be big, it's got to be cool, it's got to be exciting, it's got to be sexy, it's got to be fuego. And I came to one conclusion of what that model could be. And there could only be one that hits all those notes. And that model is big fucking Maliketh. Why did I get in the car? Yeah. Well, I don't need these anymore. No, I do actually need my paintbrushes. Okay, let's get to it. First things first, I'm going to slip into something a little more comfortable. Ooh-wee. After all that, here he is. Bollocks. Yep. It's a big old boy. Little leggies, little arms, big old base. And I think it's probably going to be the biggest model I've done to date. Big old sword. Is that the right leg? Oh my god, look at that. Now, oh god, don't break it. It'll look something like that. That's fucking cool. Hey? First things first, we've got to fill in the little holes around him. That's probably the smarter option, isn't it? Use your brain, you big dumb dick. Dumb dick. What am I looking for? This is also broken. Oh god. I can't actually use the nozzle like it's intended to. So we just have to resort to shit like this.
Hey, how's it going? It's future me. Hope you're enjoying yourself so far. You can see that I mic'd myself up for the video to talk you through the stuff as I do it. Ain't that something? But I forgot to mention that I'm using some Milliput epoxy putty to fill in the little gaps left over. I'll pass you back over.
I'm gonna take this little fella, I'm gonna tidy him up a little bit, and I'm gonna come back with him primed with some black, and we can kickstart actually painting him. Woo. See you in a minute. Oh yeah, need him. Now he's primed. Just look at that. We've obviously got the sword here as well, which I will attach later down the line. That is something else, isn't it? So before we go any further, I just want to give a shout out to 3D Arcvale, who designed this model, and it's available on CG Trader, and I will leave a link in the description below, where you can purchase and download your own one of these if you want to print your very own Maliketh. What we need to be doing is zenithal highlighting this boy. So we have some Liquitex white ink, which I like to use for some zenithal highlighting, and I'm probably going to switch to a voiceover because the compressor for the airbrush likes to be quite loud.
So just from a high up angle, I'm going to generate the light source, so it goes from the brightest point at the top and has a really nice fall off down towards the bottom where it'll be a lot darker.
A clean airbrush is a happy airbrush, and a clean boy is a safe boy. Now I'm thinking I'm going to leave this here today and I'm going to come back tomorrow just so I can let some of the glue around like the hair dry a bit. So we'll come back, we're going to paint the armor. Toodaloo. Right. Oh, we've got to paint him. Christ, where do we begin? I saw a cool technique for black armor the other day on YouTube. It consists of using some lead belcher and dry brushing, not a fully dry layer, but a relatively dry layer, over all the armor bits to give it that sort of glossy, shimmery look, to which we can start adding some of the black contrast paint that I bought. I do all my paintings and all my stuff here, which is basically the corner of my office and just this little desk that I've had for about a decade. But at some point it'd be really nice to have a little studio or workshop space where I can actually build up a proper place to work from. Maybe we'll get there one day. Okay, so that's one portion of the armor done, which is the, oh God. Wow, I just broke one of his hairs. Oh God. I'll fix that later. Now that we've got the armor, what I've done is I've taken the hair off because I didn't actually glue it on, and I've coated all the armor in just this sort of basic dry brush layer of lead belcher, to which I'm gonna just do a really dirty dry brush of some Necron compound to brighten up some of the highlight areas before we put on the contrast, and then we can start adding some stuff on top of that. I'm gonna grab some Necron compound. Oh yeah, get a load of that sound. Yeah, don't get any wrong ideas from that. And with a wide application, gently brighten up some of these little raised parts. Okay, so there's our shiny boy. Shiny, shiny boy. Ooh, I forgot, there's some little chains on this cloth. Iron Warriors is quite good for this because it's a much darker metallic, and I find works really well for like iron, things like that, so chains. I will just quickly grab the Necron compound again, give a little dusting of that to highlight some of the chains that we've just done with the Iron Warriors. I need to find where I put my new contrast paint. Oh, bloody hell. Are they in here? Welcome to Dark Souls Models and the hunt for the lost contrast paint. Bloody hell. So, in the meantime, a wee bit of Nuln oil, apply it to this little chainmail bit. Added a wee bit of contrast. Speaking of contrast, where the f is my contrast paint? Ah, I found them. That's what we'll be using. So, for this black armor, I'm going to try out some of this Black Legion and see how it reacts with this armor that we've just coated.
So I'm just coating all the metal armor parts with this Black Legion contrast paint, covering all the areas with the lead belcher and Necron compound.
So that took an awful lot longer than I had anticipated. As you can see, he's very black now, because what I've done is I did one layer of the Black Legion contrast. I did a second layer once that had dried, so obviously you've got to leave it for a couple of minutes till it's dried. And now I've got this really nice, dark armor to work with. Richly black, as using something like Abaddon Black, which is just a black pigment acrylic base paint. Whereas this sort of, you still get some shine to it. You get this sort of sateen finish as well, which is really nice. You're not getting sort of a blocky paint color all over. You're actually getting a bit of texture and a bit of shine to it, which is really nice. And I think I can work really well with some gold to all these little decals, which I'll do. I only did one layer to the cloth because it's not armor, it's fabric, so I don't think it required to be as black as the actual armor itself. And the sword, which is still drying, I just did one layer to that as well because I'm going to be applying, oh god, stop dropping stuff. I'm going to be applying a, come on, oh god, I'm going to be applying a couple of layers of some red glow to it, so I don't need to do a crazy amount of detail on this. Now I've got 2 golds in my arsenal, which are Retributor Armor, which is a rich gold tone, and I have Auric Armor Gold.
All I'm doing now is just taking a precision brush and delicately detailing in all the insane amount of gold decals all over the armor. And there is an awful lot to do, and it took me many hours to complete this process, and my wrist, it still hurts currently. Especially for this size of print I did, it does make it easier to target the slightly larger areas than if it was a smaller print, but catch-22 means I have a lot more to paint.
Oh, I had to get myself coffee because I am flaking. So, we've got both the arms done. And it is taking so long to do. Oh. Now we've got the top half done. Now we've got to do the whole bottom half. But everything hurts. My neck, my back, my Maliketh and my crack. And I also got to do this as well. God. Oh yeah, and the hair. It's never ending.
Sadly, I caught a cold the day before I started painting Maliketh, so I was not a very well person doing this. So apologies for the nasal voice and blocked nose throughout this process. Sometimes you just gotta power through it. I'm a bit better now. Thanks for asking.
Oh God, it's hurting my head. Ooh, that was close. So I got his leg done. It's honestly taking so much longer than I thought. I now need to do this leg, then the helmet. I had someone comment, well, I saw a comment this morning on one of my videos being like, hey, it'd be really nice if you could talk more about, you know, yourself, your life experiences and things like that. Well, that's kind of a cool idea. I did do like an Ask Me Anything ages ago. Maybe I'll do something like that again so you guys can get to know a bit more about me, maybe? Like, so you can, the man behind the apron. What do you guys want to know? Like, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to answer. If you want me to do another Ask Me Anything video, now that there's a few more people that watch these videos. I don't think I've drunk enough water today. My head's starting to get all... Ugh. I always thought I needed glasses. Well, no, that's a lie. I always wanted glasses as a kid. I don't know why. I always thought they looked really cool, even though back when I was growing up, you were a nerd if you wore glasses. But I always wanted a pair of glasses. I always thought they looked really cool. I remember one of my best friends when I was growing up got a pair of glasses. And I was really jealous and upset. And I was like, why did he get to wear glasses? And my mum was like, because you have perfect vision, you idiot. And I was like, yeah, but that's not fair. I want to be able to wear glasses. She was like, okay, well, when you get older, maybe you'll need glasses. I don't get to wear glasses. I do wear blue light glasses every now and then when I'm animating, because it really sometimes takes a toll on your head staring at a screen. But even when I'm doing this and just painting models, I feel like my eyes are really straining at times, and I feel like I do need something like that. But maybe I should just stand up and go outside. Done. There he is. That's how he's looking. So now I'm just going to do the helmet. Oh, there he is. We're nearly there, gang. All we have left to do is paint the fur now. And then we need to whip out our wet palette. Right, we have some storm... Whoa, hello. We have some storm vermin fur, which is kind of the ideal colour, really. I'm thinking base with some Garagak Sewer contrast paint, but I'm going to thin it down with some contrast medium. So about a 50-50 mix of the two. And I'm going to have this sort of like dark brown as the base, which I'm going to start building on some of those greys too. The reason I'm using contrast medium with the contrast paint is because it is quite a dark contrast, and it works really well to thin it out so that you're not getting crazy amounts of dark colour just taking over under shading that we've done. But it'll still sort of give a nice deep contrast as well that we can start adding these lighter grey fur layers onto. This will just act as a good dark base. Alrighty, fur done. Oh, need to do the tail. Can't forget the tail. Feeling better, just walked the dog and it absolutely pissed down on me, so now I'm soaking wet. But hey, my headache's gone, feeling a bit better. I think we can carry on painting the fur. I had this paint, which is somewhere. There it is. Yeah, the Storm Vermin fur. Yeah, that looks pretty much the exact colour I want. Got this one as well, which is called Skaven Blight Dinge. One hell of a name, which is a fair bit darker. I think we'll add a little bit of Rakar flesh, I think, for highlights. Yeah, that's a good little palette of colour. And finally, for the ultra highlights, some Corax white. Start with the darks, which is the Dinge colour. Can't remember its name already. I'm just going to kind of follow the pattern left behind by the contrast paint over this zenithal highlight job that we did. I'm going to use this dark Dinge colour for the sort of shadowed parts. I'm using the darker shade sort of at the lower parts of these sort of like little clumps of fur. And I'll probably work in some Abaddon black to it as well, the darker it goes down. And then the lighter it is, as you can see where the zenithal highlight has hit, that the contrast is brighter here and it's darker here. So we can actually use that as a sort of guide to layer our darker tones on. One of the really handy things about zenithal highlighting is, yes, it can be used as a technique in its own right, you know, to achieve cool gradients and shading and stuff. But when you're doing things like this, it's actually really handy to have sort of mapped out guide area of where you want to place shadows and highlights. And keeping it thin, it will still blend nicely into the contrast below. So we're not just getting just this colour on its own, we're actually getting a nice blended mix between the sort of darker brown contrast underneath. And once we start moving up through the highlights, you can really see it start to pop. And this sort of like motion here with the brush that's kind of like not flicking, but it's kind of like this sort of like angled stroking. It's a bit of a sus way to say it. Okay, and then just finally, while I'm here, detailing his nails with some black. Okay, we've got one more thing to do before we finish the body. Now that the fur is done, you can see these nice little highlights we've got going on, sort of all over the pieces of the fur. Last bit to do is his face. I'm going to grab some Screamer pink and some Abaddon black. And for his little teeth, I'm going to use some Wraithbone. Do a mix of Screamer pink and Abaddon black. And now for the rims around the edges of the mouth, the little lip flap bits, I'm just going to do them with some black. Now to finish off the mouth, take my tiny little precision brush, taking the Wraithbone, painting the teeth. Lovely. And I think with that we can call the body done. Now that we have the body done and out of the way, I'm just going to now paint in the gold details on this cloth bit here. This boy and his gold, honestly. So there's the cloth, well, half of it done anyway. And I'm just going to replicate this onto this side. Now that we've painted the other side, we've got the whole cloth here. Looks pretty cool. So, we'll pop this to one side. Time for the sword.
Hey, it's future me again. I'm Just taking some Retributor armor here and just doing a big old dirty dry brush of it over the hilt of the sword.
Now with that, I'm going to grab some Alric Gold and just dry brush that over that, just to brighten up those dull gold tones a bit more. And the sword now, and I'm not going to do anything crazy with it because I'm going to be doing some like reddish glows across it. So I'm just going to do some dirty dry brushing over the top just to give it some highlights. So just with this Dawnstone and a really wide dry brush. And now some Longbeard Grey. Yeah, there we go. And before we do any airbrushing on it, I am just going to take some Abaddon Black and just thin it to a glaze. Basically, I'm just hitting all these little recesses, all these little parts here with some glaze of Abaddon Black, just to bring out those shadows a bit, bring out that contrast to the highlight that we just added on. Just adds a bit of definition, a bit more depth. So with that done, I think we can safely move on to the airbrushing, and we need to do the rune, we need to do the hair, and we need to do the sword with airbrushing.
Me again. I did a stupid here. I accidentally unplugged my mic and then plugged it back into the headphone slot rather than the line out slot. So no sound from this mic, just going to be me from now, just going to be voiceover. Anywho, to start the sword work, I'm just going to dot around some patches of white in and around the crevices of the sword, making some random shapes around and just doing whatever feels natural with it, just marking out the areas of the destined death on the sword. Then taking some Flesh Tearers red and spraying over these white bits and creating a sort of dark red halo around them as well. I'm not doing a white halo first, as the dark red will act as the darkest shade of red furthest from the light. Doing a white spray first would just brighten the red up a bit too much. Then just go back over those inner red parts and paint back in those whites. Now I can take some white ink and then create the white halo effect to blend those white patches out into the dark red. And once the halo has been created, it's time to make that red glow pop. So I'm just going to take some Pyrol red ink and cover that white halo. I don't want to overwrite the darker red shadow, as I want it to sort of blend down into the darker tones a bit. So mainly focusing right on that white halo section and giving some more concentrated blasts of red to the whitest center. And that is how the effect is taking shape. Now, to bring in some shadows again, I'm going to go back to my Black Legion contrast paint, thin it down on the wet palette, and I'll just be using this as sort of a bit of a glaze and going over the shadows on the sword with it. I want to target the areas that are not being affected by the glowing red, so it really shows that contrast between the dark and the light of the red. So focusing a lot of the black on those sides that are opposite to the red and the red highlight fall off regions. And that should really help emphasize the brightness of these reds in these little pockets. So that concludes the sword, and I'm going to get it stuck on and leave him over in the corner to dry off. Which leaves us with the final part of the body, which is the hair. I'm starting off with the darkest point of the hair, which will be from the roots outwards, and I'll be using some Ishin Grey to do this, just focusing on the middle and slowly going outwards. Then I can move up into some Administratum Grey, and I'll use this to go from the middle of the hairs to the tips, and create a nice smooth transition between this and the Ishin Grey underneath. Then I can highlight the upper parts and the tips of the hair with some Corax White. And that is how his big old wig is looking. Now I can finish it off with just adding some edge highlights and little details to the strands to bring up some more of the highlights. I can now fix the hair onto his head and get it glued up. And there he is, the main body done. That's about a foot tall, I reckon. Now for the last bit of all, the base. Before I do that, I do need to attach the cloth part here. Yeah, there's our little man. I also forgot to do the rune on his hands, so okay, just colour in the ropes holding it in place with some Xandri dust. And with that done, I can add some Balthazar gold onto the actual plate. And now the body is complete. Promise, we can finally do the base now. So to start off, I'm going to dry brush on some Dawnstone all over the base, keeping it light and dry so that I still retain some of the black underneath. To which I can dry brush on some Retributor armor to the center of the base, again making sure it's dry and light, soft wide brush strokes to quickly apply it, and keeping that black remaining on the darker regions of the details. Then I'm just going to take some Nuln Oil, put it all over the base so it can settle into the deepest parts of the details, and give us some sort of extra gloss and contrast all over. And whilst we wait for the Nuln Oil to dry, we can move on to painting the candles. So I'll start by basing them with some Moorcast Bone. Then I'm going to go over that once dry with some Seraphim Sepia to give us some contrast and a bit of layering to it, to which we can highlight later once dried. Now that the Nuln Oil has dried on the base, I'm going to dry brush on some highlights using some Longbeard Grey all over the areas with the Dawnstone. Then I can move on to the gold highlighting, and I will highlight these parts with some Owlred Gold. For the flames on the candles, I'm going to base them with some Mephiston Red, and this colour will be the coldest part of the flame, to which we'll be adding the hotter, brighter colours on after, in the centre of the flames. Then I'm moving up into the oranges, using some Troll Slayer Orange and painting this in the centre of the flames, keeping the tips of the flames nice and red. Then for the hot centre of each one of the flames, I'm going to be using this Flash Glitz Yellow, making sure I'm just targeting the centre of the flames, not overwriting the oranges or the red, but just keeping that transition between the yellow to the orange to the red. Now to finish off the flames, I'm just going to add some black to the very, very tips of the flames, as if we're sort of seeing the smoke starting to emanate from the ends of them. So with that, we can add the reflections. So that we can add some reflections of the fire later on, I'm going to base the tops of each one of these candles with some Corax White. It's a nice strong white pigment, so it'll get a good coverage over all the candle tops. Then to finish the candles off, I'm going to go over them all and the dripping wax and the wax on the floor with some thinned down Wraithbone to give us that nice off-white tone that you get with the sort of white candles. Now we can add the flame reflections in, and I'm not going to use an airbrush for this as I need some sort of like more close control and not a lot of paint to do it. So instead I'm going to be dry brushing and using some Troll Slayer Orange to generate the first reflection colour. Then I can further enhance those oranges with some Flash Glitz Yellow and dry brush it on top of the orange. Being careful not to completely overdo the orange, but just using it in parts of the orange that are actually closer to the flames themselves, and that should help create the illusion of the flame reflection. And with that, it is finally done. I can just grab my little man and glue him down onto the base. And finally, there he is. He's absolutely massive, and he's totally epic. It has taken a number of days to print and paint this boy, and as of right now, a bloody long time to edit this video. But to me, it's been totally worth it. I'm really happy with how this one came out. It was quite the challenge for sure, and I did put off doing it for a number of weeks. So with that, there's only one thing left to do, and in the words of the wise and wonderful Josh Wiseman, let's hit the B-roll. And that about does it today, guys. Like I said, this video was quite the feat to accomplish. I tried to really go the extra mile for this video to do a model like this justice and kind of change up the format a little bit so it felt a bit more natural than just sort of doing voiceover over the top of me painting, so hopefully you enjoyed the process a little bit more. If you did enjoy today's video, please be sure to drop it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. Thanks again for tuning in, and if you've made it this far in the video, you're a real one. And I will see you in the next one. Peace out, gang, and don't you dare go hollow.